In Pit Lane, brought to you by Oasis. Luxury living with great city views, including Albert Park. By Holder East.
Everybody, and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane here on Channel 31 and Channel 44 in Adelaide, coming to you from the studios of RMIT University here in cancelled Grand Prix City, Melbourne. And I really wasn't expecting to be here and talking to you this week in light of all that is happening. And the only reason I'm here is because, one, the studio is still open, and two, because of the dedication and determination of a lot of wonderful people who have come in to get us out on, as they say in the classic, the show must go on. So my thanks to everybody who has come in tonight to keep us on the air. They did it because they love the show, they love what we're doing here, and more importantly, this is about the only place in Melbourne at the moment where you can get lots and lots of sanitizer, and there's still plenty of toilet paper. Please don't rush. Please don't rush. Now, coming up this week, obviously there is things have changed dramatically. We had with the Grand Prix over the weekend, and with other things coming up. We don't want to concentrate too much on the situation because, you know, quite frankly, the things are depressing enough as they are, and we just want to give you some a bit of fun and a bit of information here on the program. And helping me once again in that endeavour will be my co-host. He is Craig Doc Gladigo. Doc, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Brett. You're glowing tonight.
I am glowing.
Hang on. Oh, yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
Oh, this is occupational health and safety.
Exactly.
I think we're
bring all that sanitizer and stuff that you just said we had. No,
I think we're officially too close.
That's a wrap. Sorry, guys. No, we're still here. You are glowing tonight. Have you done something?
No. Darren has done the lighting tonight, and he favours a more summer hue.
I was going to say we've both got fake tan tonight.
We're looking very.
I don't remember going through that process.
Sun-kissed and interesting tonight.
Absolutely.
Anyway, look, we could yak on for hours, and probably will, because let's face it, there's not much else to report about. But what there is, we're going to report about right now with the In Pit Lane Motorsport News.
Some racing at Albert Park. S5000, Supercars, TCR and CARRERA Cup were all in action on Thursday. Cameron Hill won the opening race of the CARRERA Cup, going into history as the only race winner of the weekend. James Golding took pole position for the opening round of the 2020 Australian S5000 Championship. Golding set a fastest lap of 1 minute 50.65 seconds in the last minute before the checkered flag was waved. Thomas Randall was second for Team BRM, with Ricky Capo driving for Moderna Engineering in third place. Garth Tander was the quickest of the TCR Asia Pacific Cup cars at Albert Park. Tander in an Audi moved to the top of the order late in the session to edge out Michael Caruso in the Gary Rogers Motorsport Alfa Romeo, with Hyundai driver Nathan Morecambe in third. And the 888 pair of Shane Van Gisbergen and Jamie Whincup set the pace in the supercars. Van Gisbergen qualified on pole for race 3, while Whincup was fastest in the second session. The cancellation of the race was a blow to Whincup, who was due to make his 500th race start on the weekend.
Motorsport Australia CEO Eugene Arocca has congratulated and thanked officials for their work at the cancelled Australian Grand Prix meeting. Mr Arocca also said that despite the current government restrictions, many grassroots motorsport events would be able to continue. Unfortunately, the Victorian State Championship, scheduled for Winton at the end of the month, has been cancelled, as has the Andra Australian Drag Racing Grand Final, scheduled for Adelaide, also at the end of this month. The Dry Lakes Racing Association 30th Anniversary Speed Week at Lake Gardner has also been postponed to a date to be fixed. In Pit Lane did approach someone from Motorsport Australia to comment on the current situation. Unfortunately, they have not responded. As you can imagine, things are pretty chaotic everywhere at the moment, but hopefully in the next few weeks we will be able to get someone from Motorsport Australia on to answer some of your questions as to what the immediate future of the sport is once they've sort of worked it out themselves. So, that's the situation at the moment, Doc. I mean, as I said, don't want to go on too much about it. it, but yeah, the cancellation of the Grand Prix, it was inevitable that it was going to happen. There's a lot of criticism about why it happened, but a lot of people sort of don't realise why it happened that way and why it had to happen that way. Just to take you through the whole process for people who don't understand, according to my information, as early as Tuesday, there were members of the Australian Grand Prix Corporation board who were very, very concerned about running the event, but they were told that at the time on Tuesday when we recorded our last show, that they were confident that the situation could be handled and that the event could go ahead as planned. Now, what happened, of course, is after that they did the testing, and there were initially 9 people were tested, 8 crew members from Formula One and 1 photographer. Thankfully for most of them, for 8 people, the test came back clear, but 1 member of the McLaren Formula One team, 1 mechanic, was positive. At that point, the rest of the McLaren team had no option but to withdraw from the meeting. It was at that point there was an arrangement between all the teams before the event that if one team was out, all were out. Now, of course, being Formula One, that's not how it happened. When they had their meeting, Red Bull, AlphaTauri, for the team formerly known as Force India, Racing Point, and at that stage Mercedes, all said they wanted to race. Now, what happened from that point on is that a little bit later on, Mercedes received a phone call, Toto Wolff received a phone call from Mercedes head office saying that they were concerned at the public relations appearance of this and also the safety and security of their team. So from that point, Mercedes pulled out, and once they did, it was at that point and that point only that allowed the FIA to step in and cancel the race. If the Australian Grand Prix Corporation had have cancelled the race, or even the Victorian government, they could have been up for millions and millions of dollars of compensation.
Well, there's so many variables when it comes to that, though, isn't it? Well, you're telling obviously the public, which is fantastic, everything that went behind the scenes, but you've got all those obviously different steps through the process over a 24, 36-hour period, plus all the things that are going behind, because not only were they having their meetings, the state government was having their meetings, the federal government was having their meetings, the FIO, the deputy CEO from FIA was overseas, and he was flying in.
And that was
well
the But anyway, for people who are wondering, why did it take so long? That's exactly why it took so long. It really came down to who was going to pull the trigger, and for legal reasons, it had to be the FIA. Look, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take you down to Phillip Island to a gentler time and a happier time, and we're going to show you a fabulous new concept in local motorsport, a one-make series recreating the classic Grand Prix cars of the 1960s. You're watching In Pit Lane on Channel 31 and Channel 44. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, a couple of weeks ago there was some racing on. It was the annual Phillip Island Historic Festival of Motorsport, one of the great meetings of the year, and we'll have more from the Festival of Motorsport coming up in a few weeks' time here on In Pit Lane. But one of the things that was down, an interesting feature of this year's event, was a car that, well, it wasn't quite historic, but it certainly looked it. It was recreating a fabulous era of international motorsport, the Grand Prix racing of the 1960s.
Dan Gurney's Eagles were the most successful American cars in Formula One, but this isn't one of them. This is the latest offering from Melbourne car builder Robert Logan. Robert, whose Roaring 40s GT40 replicas were so popular, has recreated the classic lines of a mid-60s Formula One car, but with, hopefully, a lot more modern safety.
Well, one of the most interesting historic cars here at the Phillip Island Historic Classic this year isn't exactly historic, although it certainly looks it. It's a new category or a new concept, which is from Robert Logan. You may know Robert from the Roaring 40s, the GT40 replicas made here in Melbourne. But Robert, first of all, tell us about what this is. I mean, it looks like a Gurney Eagle, but it's not quite, is it?
No, the original Gurney Eagle was a monocoque magnesium. This is 15% larger, so that reasonable sized people can fit in, and it's a steel chassis, a space frame chassis instead of a monocoque. So quite similar to the same sort of idea we use with the GT40s. We're not affiliated, I have to say that, because I'm in talks with Justin Gurney, who owns all the trademarks. So we are not an AAR, and we're not a Gurney. Absolutely. It's my own idea.
So tell us about the concept. I mean, you've been working on this for a while. It doesn't fit into any historic category or any other category, but you're looking at these both as a track day car, but also for possibly some sort of one-make series?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted I always fancied a 5000, but, you know, a friend of mine told me that, Robert, they're perfectly safe until you switch them on, and then they try and kill you. So I wanted something that was safe at the end of the day, so I decided I'd build my own. But at the same time, I hadn't got an army of mechanics to run around after me to look after the thing and chase Weber carburetors to try and tune them and all the rest of the stuff. So I wanted to use modern day mechanics. So very similar to what we did with the Roaring 40 GT40. We're running a Motec injection system. We have trickle chargers for the batteries. I'm running a crate engine, so it's really cheap to maintain. In fact, it doesn't need maintaining really. We're running road gearboxes, and the difference really between this and the GT40s is I've upped the ante with clutches and I've upped the ante with brakes, big style, because we've dropped the weight to approximately 2/3 of the weight, and the horsepower has increased slightly. So our power to weight ratio is somewhere close to 500 horsepower a ton, which is serious numbers, and so we've got very big Alcon brakes in it, and so yeah.
So what's the intended audience for this? Who are you expecting to buy these cars?
Yeah, I've had inquiries from America. I really didn't think we would get the opportunity to race them here in Australia. And I think that's because the historic setup in Australia is run by enthusiasts and not by businessmen. Because if they were run by businessmen, we would have more people participating. In America, it's very much a business. And so the numbers of participants, is what they call them, running 5000s and various other things, is reducing and reducing as the cars become more valuable and as the owners become older. So we're trying to get a new group of people into it, and so they've offered me in America, two historic groups in America have offered me one make series, and we're negotiating in Europe for a one make series to support the Masters series, which is the old F1s over there. So it'll be an arrive and drive in Europe, and the guy I'm dealing with is a very, very serious racer, runs his own Porsche teams, and the guys I'm dealing with in America also are very serious people.
So I suppose it's a bit like a real-life Grand Prix Legends game, I mean, for a lot of people. I mean, it's the ultimate fantasy to drive a car like this. This one is based on the Gurney design. Are you going to do other designs?
Yeah, we have a Ferrari 312 nose in the trailer beside us here, and we have the body for that. But I'm hoping to do and they're all tributes, so they're not exactly the same. They have a hue towards the car, and that's very important. So we're running a Brabham BT24, Lotus Type 49, the Honda that Surtees raced, RA 273, the Matra from Henry Pascarola. I'm looking at a Brabham and a BRM, not a Brabham, a BRM, and I'm looking at a Cooper, and I'm looking at a McLaren as well.
So if people are interested in finding out more about these cars, where do they find out more about them?
Yeah, look, the new company name will be called Phillip Island Racecars, because we're going to build them here on the island in Cowes. And I haven't set up a website yet, but I'm shortly going to do that. But if you wanted to talk to Mark Coffey up at Maranello Motorsport in town, the Ferrari guys in town, they are certainly asked me to look after the sales in Australia. So talk to Mark and tell him you came from the boys. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Robert, well, it's certainly been attracting a lot of interest. We've watched the design of it come over for the past couple of years, so it's great to see it out and about here this weekend. Good luck with it, and for now, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks, Brad. Thank you.
Yes, an absolutely fabulous concept there. The car looks absolutely beautiful, and as was mentioned in the interview, I think Robert also has a Ferrari body on that, and that looks amazing as well. A really interesting car and a really interesting concept that we've been following for quite a while here on In Pit Lane, and hopefully, I mean, to see a full field of those things would be absolutely amazing. It was quite the weapon, wasn't it? It was a beautiful piece of work.
Oh, when he fired it up, it was like a rocket. Houston, we don't have a problem here whatsoever. It was fantastic, and people. The old thing is, every time we go to a meeting and we see one of these cars, and not just that one, there was a lot of them down there at Phillip, which we can talk about in a second. People come from everywhere and just want to. They're just fascinated with it, aren't they?
I think the thing about what Robert is doing, I was a bit disappointed, but not unfortunately not surprised that there was a lot of. He gave some feedback that he had some criticism from people associated with the historic movement. There's a few people in the historics who take this stuff very, very, very seriously, and they sort of gave him a hard time because it is not a real historic car. But we know that. We know it's not a real historic car.
Every nut and bolt has to be manufactured in 1948.
Yeah, and that's the problem. But yeah, it was a great meeting. I mean, it's always a fabulous meeting.
It just blew us away. I mean, you've been around doing these meetings for years, and you're fascinated by and the cars and the stories, and everyone was just such ingrained with the wonderful cars and beautiful machines, and they were just absolutely eager to get out there and just have a run for the weekend. And that's their one weekend a year they set aside. The weather's beautiful. There's great people surrounding them. They camp down there. They have a great time, don't they?
They certainly do, and hopefully we'll be back at Phillip Island for that, and also hopefully Sandown later in the year. Hey, we're going to take another break here on In Pit Lane. When we come back, we're going to take us out. We got some music tonight. We don't have them live, but Sunny Moo will be joining us a little bit later, and we're going to take us out a little bit later on the program. So you're watching In Pit Lane. In just a moment, we'll be right back. Welcome back to In Pit Lane on Channel 31 Melbourne and Geelong and Channel 44 in Adelaide. Just a reminder, if you'd like to contact us here at In Pit Lane, there's a number of ways you can do it, and you can follow us on a number of social media platforms. And there we are, we do have a graphic up. The show at In Pit Lane, that's our email address. If you'd like to contact us directly, the show at In Pit Lane is the way you do that. We are on Facebook. Please follow us on Facebook. We'll give you all of the latest breaking news and as much stuff as we know about not only the world of motorsport and what's happening sort of locally, also about what's happening with this program and the Channel 31 and 44 and what's happening in the future. That's disappeared now. So we're also on YouTube, the In Pit Lane YouTube channel, where you can normally watch us do the program live every week. Now, we're not live this week for a whole bunch of reasons, which I won't go into right now, but you can watch us live when we record the show every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. Now, because of the way, we'll get onto that in a moment, but also remember we're on Twitter as well. Follow us on Twitter at In Pit Lane. Now, as I said, obviously with what's happening around the world at the moment, motorsport is very much a minor sort of distraction. It would be lovely if we had some, but we just want to let you know now in terms of what's happening with a number of things, including this program. As I said before, we're in the studio as per usual, and at this stage the studio remains open. However, I'm not sure that's going to happen, and the program is put together by a lot of very dedicated people who come in every week and give their time for absolutely nothing. Look, if we were getting paid big dollars for this, we might sort of, suck it up and come in. But quite frankly, there is no point in bringing in 14 or 15 people together every week in a confined space under the current circumstances and put everybody at increased risk of this particular illness. So because of that, this is the final studio-based show of In Pit Lane, at least until after Easter. But that doesn't mean that we're going off air, and it doesn't mean that there won't be any live shows. We will continue for as long as humanly possible to provide you with programs every week on Channel 31 and 44. We're not sure what they're going to contain at this stage, but there's going to be programs. But also, as I said, we're going to do some live shows. Every Tuesday night, we're going to endeavour to have a live Q&A or just live interviews, a whole bunch of stuff from basically, not from here, but from the luxuriously appointed corporate headquarters of In Pit Lane overlooking beautiful Lake Geneva.
We are in a state of emergency again. second time this year, which has been unknown territory for everything.
And you're at the front line. I mean, you're in retail, aren't you?
Oh, well, that's another thing. But look, it is scary times. Unfortunately, we're in a state of emergency in Victoria. Where is this all going to end? It could go.
Well, we don't know. But what we've got at the moment is we have hope, and of course we have music. And speaking of music, a couple of weeks ago we were joined in the studio by Melbourne singer-songwriter Sunny Moo. And for those of you watching on Channel 31 Melbourne, you didn't see this, but we're going to show it to you right now. This is a bonus song that she did for our live YouTube viewers. Another reason to subscribe to YouTube. This is Sunny Moo and Blue Box. It's available on Spotify, iTunes and Deezer, and she's going to take us out with Blue Box. So until we see you again from who knows where, stay safe, thanks for watching, and good night.
Started watching when I was only 8. I didn't know that a show could be my best mate. The doctor taught me how to deal with times straight. 'Cause in the end everything always turns out fine. So David, won't you come back to my life? 'Cause Nat Smith, well, he just doesn't feel right. So David, won't you come back to my life? 'Cause I've been waiting for that blue box to arrive. So come on and teach me about a Time Lord's life. Come on and show me the box that's bigger on the inside. An avid protector of the humankind. You may not be human, but damn boy, you still look fine. So David, won't you come back to my life? 'Cause Matt Smith, well, he just doesn't feel right. So David, won't you come back to my life? 'Cause I've been waiting for that blue box to